Hi and welcome. My name is Brett, and today I'm going to be talking with y'all about a subject that is close to my heart called queering poverty. At least that's the term I am ascribing to it for now, until there's a better term that comes along. So today I want to be talking about how poverty affects queer people, but I wanted to start with the inspiration for this little project of mine, and that is the feminization of poverty. Specifically, the book by Sharon Hayes, Flat Broke with Children, as she discussed the feminization of poverty as it pertained to welfare recipients in the 90s and early 2000s. The feminization of poverty kind of looks at how certain factors, such as being a single mother, having trouble paying for childcare, and other kind of factors negatively impact women in terms of trying to make their way out of poverty. The feminization of poverty describes the process of which, slowly and over time, women have become more disenfranchised within the capitalist economy. So, why is it important? Well, understanding how different demographics experience poverty under capitalism and the different variables that impact their way out of said poverty is extremely important, which leads to the intersectionality of poverty. So I really did like Sharon Hayes. Sharon Hayes isn't the first person to come up with the feminization of poverty, but Sharon Hayes did talk a lot about it as it pertains to social work, and myself as a housing case manager find this topic pretty important to myself. For the intersectionality of poverty, why does intersectionality matter? Well, intersectionality takes into account not only gender, such as women being disenfranchised, but also race and ethnicity, or important for also this study, gender and sexuality, right? So there are different intersections, as you can see by the little picture I have here. And these intersections can negatively or positively, in fact, or impact your position in the economic sphere. So, how does this change the feminization of poverty? It doesn't necessarily change it, but rather deepen it and the understanding of it, right? So, how might Black mothers experience the feminization of poverty versus, say, white mothers? Now, Sharon Hayes does briefly touch on like race and ethnicity in this book, but for me, the piece that's close to my heart is LGBTQ issues as a gay man, and seeing LGBT clients. So that brings me to queering poverty. And as you can see in this little infographic, a lot of LGBT youth experience homelessness. Because of this, a lot of them face incarceration and fines and other types of legal action. There is a huge epidemic within the LGBT plus community of youth experiencing homelessness due to being rejected by their families for their identities. It's important to recognize, though, that queerness is a spectrum and that different types of identities are going to experience things differently. So, a transgender woman might experience poverty to a higher or greater degree than, say, a cisgender gay man like myself, right? So, to understand how queerness is a spectrum and that the queer identities can overlap with each other. So, a trans woman can be also a lesbian. So, a trans woman that's a lesbian might also experience poverty differently than a trans woman that is straight. Intersectionality and the feminization of poverty shed light on queering poverty. So, what this means is that we can use the feminization of poverty and how the disenfranchisement of women operate and intersectional factors such as race and ethnicity, gender and sexuality, age, ability, etc. We can use these to examine how queer people might experience poverty differently than their straight or cisgender counterparts. So, queering poverty continued. So, according to the Human Rights Campaign website, the percentage of queer people who experience poverty at some point in their life is mostly, not to my surprise, 29% of transgender adults, 48% if they're Latin, or 39% if Black. So, as you can see here, that not only being trans increases the rate that you're likely to experience poverty at some point in your life, but also being a person of color drastically increases this number and chance as well. 29% of bisexual women. It's important to note they didn't classify straight or cis for this definition. So for that, I'm unsure about the gender dynamics fully on that, but bisexual women do experience a high rate of poverty. 19.5% of bisexual men. Once again, it was not classified whether trans or cisgender. And then the other queer identities that actually, to my surprise, face similar rates as their straight and cisgender counterparts are that of gay cis men and and lesbian cis women. Gay cis men are about 1% less likely than straight cis men to experience poverty. And lesbian cis women and straight cis women are pretty even or on par with each other for the rates in which they experience poverty. These identities actually really highlight the importance of intersectionality because, as you can see, cisgender and gay and lesbian are kind of the two more privileged within the LGBT community. And I'm sure there's a myriad of reasons that we can come up with for why that might be. But as we can see for bisexual women, bisexual men, they're at a increased rate, and transgender individuals are also at an increased rate. So what is there to be done? Well, as with Flat Broke with Children kind of articulated, that reform in a lot of ways did actually not help, but rather had the negative or opposite impact of helping and displaced millions of mothers who were on welfare at the time. So reform can actually be kind of a dangerous thing in terms of reforming a institution who has been built on the exploitation of marginalized identities. So what is there to be done is a question that I never like to fully answer. I feel like there are things that can't or won't work to be done. But moving forward, I think that's a question for our greater community. And those of you on YouTube, I would love to hear your thoughts and kind of interaction and what you believe there is to be done. Personally, I think that reform in a lot of ways has been demonstrated through many literature that isn't going to be helpful, especially for LGBT plus individuals, especially for more marginalized identities within the LGBT plus community. There might be more privileged LGBT people like myself who experience benefits of reform, but I would say that the more intersections of your identity, then the more likelihood of you experiencing poverty or homelessness. So that's what I got for now. I would love to hear from y'all. Thank y'all for your time.